carrying with it Baraka. You know the word Baraka, one of the implications of the word Baraka is that Baraka refers to things that grow. So what you do in this month, as we will see, is amplified. It has an enduring effect on your soul. It's a month of rahmah. Why is it a month of rahmah? Because in this month, shaitan is in captivity. Allah has made things easier for you to approach him. Your sworn enemy is in captivity. And it's a month of maghfirah. It's a month where Allah has made it so easy for you to earn His pleasure and to earn His forgiveness. And then the Prophet says, شَهْرٌ هُوَ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَفْضَلُ الشُّهُورِ. It's the best of months. وَأَيَّامُهُ أَفْضَلُ الْأَيَّامِ. And its days are the best of days. وَلَيَالِهِ أَفْضَلُ اللَّيَالِ. And it's important for us to internalize this. Because what happens in the first few days of the month of Ramadan, people don't really show up to the masjid because they're waiting for what? They're waiting for the big nights. We're waiting for, 15th of Ramadan, 19th, because we understand that there are special days, and there are special days in this month. But don't let that make you underestimate the power and the value of the other days. Every day, every night is sacred. We only do a'mal on certain nights, but there are a'mal for every night, for every day. وَسَاعَاتُهُ أَفْضَلُ السَّاعَاتِ. And its hours are the best of hours. Every minute of this month is sacred. Not only when you come to the masjid, when you're at home, when you're at work, every moment is sacred. It's consequential if you take advantage of it. وَهُوَ شَهْرٌ دُعِيتُمْ فِيهِ إِلَىٰ ضِيَافَةِ اللَّهِ. It's the month in which you have been invited by Allah. You are the guests of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has extended an invitation to you. You are His guest. If you receive an invitation from a king or a prime minister or a scholar, how honored would you be to just be invited? Not only are you invited by Allah, what does the Prophet say? وَجُعِلْتُمْ فِيهِ مِنْ أَهْلِ كَرَامَةِ اللَّهِ. So imagine there's an invitation and there are guests. Usually when a very important person hosts a gathering, he has guests, but he also has what? Special guests, honored guests. We call them what? The VIPs, the very important people. So you might be invited to attend a gathering, but you might not be an honored guest. You just might be a regular guest. But the Prophet says, you are min ahli karamatillah. You are invited as the special guest of God. Meaning that Allah treats every single one of you as if you are His most important guest. وَجُعِلْتُمْ فِيهِ مِنْ أَهْلِ كَرَامَةِ اللَّهِ. Now, what does it mean to be the honored guest of Allah? Because you're not just His guest, you are His honored guest. Now, how does Allah honor His guests? The Prophet explains, أَنْفَاسُكُمْ فِيهِ تَسْبِيحٌ. When the host wants to honor his guest, he gives them special treatment. How does Allah give us special treatment in this month? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He wants to bring you so close to Him, and He wants to honor you in such a way that He says, I'll reward you for breathing. Allahu Akbar. When you breathe in this month, I will count it as tasbih. As you're sitting now and you're listening, every time you inhale and you exhale, Allah gives you rewards. In other months, to receive the reward of tasbih, you actually have to do tasbih. You have to remember Allah, Allahu Akbar, Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah. But in this month, you just breathe, which is an involuntary act. So Allah in this month, He rewards you for an involuntary act that you do unconsciously. And He gives you the reward of being among the musabbihin. Now this shows you what? Is this a Lord who is eager to punish His servants? Or is this a Lord who is trying to find any excuse to show you maghfirah and rahmah? أنفاسكم فيه تسبيح ونومكم فيه عبادة. Your sleep is worship. I don't think there is one single person among us who has worshipped Allah from Isha until Fajr. Do you know anyone that has done ibadah at night for 10 hours straight without taking a break? Allah says in every other month, if you want to receive the thawab of ibadah at night, you actually have to stand up, do wudu, pray. In other months, if you want your sleep to be ibadah, you have to make the niyyah. Meaning that you have to sleep with the intention of seeking nearness to God. You're sleeping with the niyyah of regaining your energy so you can serve Allah and you can please Him the next day. But in this month, even if you don't make the niyyah, Shaykh Azhar is giving a lecture and you fall asleep in his lecture. He gives you ibadah for your little nap. وَنَوْمُكُمْ فِيهِ عِبَادَةً. So even if you sleep without the niyyah of seeking nearness to Allah, in every other month it would be mubah, it's a neutral act. But in this month it's worship. وَعَمَلُكُمْ فِيهِ مَقْبُولٌ. Allah in this month, He has lowered the threshold, the requirement for the acceptability of actions. Here in this month, Allah, He makes it so much easier. Your a'mal are much more likely to be accepted. وَدُعَاءُكُمْ فِيهِ مُسْتَجَابٌ. Anything that was hindering you from your actions being accepted, from your prayers to be answered, all of those obstacles have been removed in this month. They've all been removed. And the Prophet, then he says, I'm going to just certain parts of the khutbah. The Prophet says, فَاسْأَلُوا اللَّهَ بِنِيَّاتٍ صَادِقَةٍ وَقُلُوبٍ طَاهِرَةٍ. So the Prophet says, your dua is mustajab. So what do you pray for? What should you pray for? The Prophet says, فَاسْأَلُوا اللَّهَ رَبَّكُمْ بِنِيَّاتٍ صَادِقَةٍ وَقُلُوبٍ طَاهِرَةٍ. Ask Allah with sincere hearts, with sincerity, with pure hearts. What should you pray for? Listen to the first thing the Prophet mentions. أَن يُوَفِّقَكُمْ لِصِيَامِهِ وَتِلَاوَةِ كِتَابِهِ. Ask Allah to give you the tawfiq to fast. You know, we take it for granted. Every month, every year, we fast. Do you know how many people become sick and they're not able to fast? Do you know how many people are under circumstances that prevent them from fasting? Don't take it for granted that you have the health to fast. Rasulullah says, always ask Allah to give you the tawfiq to fast. You know, sometimes you might have to travel during the month. Sometimes you get sick and you lose out on the opportunity to fast. Rasulullah says the first thing that you should ask is what? That Allah always gives you the tawfiq to fast. Don't take it for granted. There are many people who would love to fast, but they're not able to. It needs tawfiq. And then the Prophet, after mentioning fasting, what does he mention? Tilawata kitabih. Ask Allah to give you the tawfiq to recite the Quran. You know, brothers and sisters, there are many people, an entire year goes by and they don't open the Quran. There was a man who asks Imam al-Ridha alayhi salam, La sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He says to the Imam, Ya ibn Rasulullah, why did Allah mandate the recitation of Surah Al-Fatiha and another surah in the first 2 rak'ahs of every prayer? Why don't we just do a general dhikr? Why has Allah legislated the recitation of Quran in our salah? The Imam says, because if it wasn't for salah, some of us would never have a relationship with the Quran. And this is true. Some of us, if it wasn't for salah and the fact that we recite Surah Al-Fatiha every day, and we recite a short surah, some of us would have no relationship with the Quran. Meaning salah, for many people, it's their only connection to the Quran. Because they have to recite Surah Al-Fatiha in a short surah. So the Imam says, if it wasn't for this salah, if it wasn't for the fact that Allah mandated Quran as a part of your salah, you would never have a relationship with Quran. Ask Allah to give you the tawfiq to recite the Quran. And believe me, brothers and sisters, it doesn't take a long time. Today, many of you recited the first juz' from Surah Al-Fatiha to ayah number 41 of Surah Al-Baqarah. Believe me, even if you read it at a steady pace, at a moderate pace, it will take you no longer than 30 to 35 minutes, 40 minutes max. How much time do we spend on social media every day? I guarantee most of you spend more than 40 minutes on social media a day. Ask Allah to give you the tawfiq to recite the Quran. And fasting and recitation of the Quran are linked. Because why do we fast according to the Quran? لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. So you can develop taqwa. Who benefits from the Quran? There's only one group of people that benefit from the Quran. ألف لام ميم ألف لام ميم ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى. This Quran is guidance for who? For muttaqeen. So Allah wants you to fast so you can develop taqwa, so you can be among those who benefit from the Quran. It's all connected to the Quran. And then the Prophet, what does he say? You know, when we fast, many of us, especially, during the summertime, I don't know if you guys have this habit, especially on the weekends. People, they wake up for Fajr, they have their suhoor, Fajr, and then they sleep until Dhuhr. They eat, they might watch a little bit of TV, and then they sleep until Maghrib. Why do they do this? Because they want to escape the discomfort of hunger and thirst. Now we mentioned that sleep is ibadah, but there's something that the Prophet mentions here. Rasulullah in this khutbah, he says, وَاذْكُرُوا بِجُوعِكُمْ وَعَطَشِكُمْ فِي جُوعَ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ وَعَطَشِ. The Prophet says, let your hunger and your thirst in this month make you mindful of the hunger and the thirst you will feel on the day of Qiyamah. Meaning the Prophet says, don't run away from the thirst and hunger. Experience it. Don't just sleep and try to escape the discomfort. Embrace it. Because when you feel that hunger and that thirst, it's a powerful reminder of that day. Our lives, every day in our lives is a preparation for that day. There's a narration from Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, la sallu ala Muhammad wa alayhi, where he speaks about the condition of the people on the Day of Judgment. It's a day we really underestimate how difficult that day will be. The struggles of that day. Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, in Nahj al-Balagha, وَذَلِكَ يَوْمٌ يَجْمَعُ اللَّهُ فِيهِ الْأَوَّلِينَ وَالْآخِرِينَ. That on that day, that is the day in which Allah will gather all people, from the time of Adam until the Day of Judgment. Every human being that has walked this earth will congregate on that day. وَذَلِكَ يَوْمٌ يَجْمَعُ اللَّهُ فِيهِ الْأَوَّلِينَ وَالْآخِرِينَ لِنِقَاشِ الْحِسَابِ وَجَزَاءِ الْأَعْمَالِ. So Allah can take people to account and recompense them for their deeds. And then what does the Imam say? خُضُوعًا قِيَامًا. People will be standing, humbled. No one is going to be arrogant on that day. We have arrogant people in dunya. Yawm al-Qiyamah, no one is arrogant. Everyone is humbled, standing. And then the Imam says, قَدْ أَلْجَمَهُمُ الْعَرَقِ وَرَجَفَتْ بِهِمُ الْأَرْضِ. The Imam says, because of the crowds on that day, some people will feel like they are drowning in sweat, the sweat of the people. People will be thirsty. وَرَجَفَتْ بِهِمُ الْأَرْضِ. And the earth is trembling beneath their feet. And then what does the Imam say? فَأَحْسَنُهُمْ حَالًا مَنْ وَجَدَ لِقَدَمَيْهِ مَوْضِعًا وَلِنَفَسِهِ مُتَّسَعٌ. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, the person who is in the best situation on the Day of Judgment is the one who can find some room to plant his feet and for some space to breathe. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, this is the person who's in the best situation on the Day of Judgment. That if you can just find some room for your feet and just some room for you to breathe, then you are among the ones who will be saved on that day. Let the difficulties that you face, force yourselves to stay awake during the day. Feel the hunger and the thirst. Don't run away from it. وَتَصَدَّقُوا عَلَى فُقَرَائِكُمْ وَمَسَاكِينِكُمْ. The Prophet is telling the community that, if you look at his khutbah, the majority of the things that the Prophet speaks about are related to interpersonal relationships in the community. Because that's the essence of Islam. Be charitable towards the fuqara and the masakeen in the community. Now when I say the word faqir, a poor person, what do you automatically think about? Someone who's homeless and is begging for bread, right? We think that this is the definition of faqir. In the Islamic tradition, someone who is faqir is someone who does not make enough to meet their needs, their annual needs. So for example, if there's a family and they need $50,000 a year to cover their expenses, if they work and they make $48,000 a year, they are fuqara according to the Islamic tradition. So someone might have a job and they might have a car and they come to the masjid and they dress well, but they are considered fuqara. We cannot neglect such people. We have to look after them. Miskeen, according to some, they say they don't even have the needs for their day. Whereas the faqir doesn't have their needs for the وَتَصَدَّقُوا عَلَى فُقَرَائِكُمْ وَمَسَاكِينِكُمْ. What typically happens, people, they become very generous after their death. In our fiqh, you are allowed to do whatever you want with 1/3 of your wealth. You can put in your wasiyah, in your will, that 1/3 of my wealth, I want it to be donated to this person or that person. You have autonomy over 1/3. During the time of the Prophet, there was a man, when he was alive, he was very stingy. One of the companions of the Prophet, when he was alive, he was very tight with his money. On the day that he died, in his wasiyah, he mentioned in his will that I want you to distribute all of this money to the fuqara. The Prophet ﷺ, he attended the janazah prayer, and the Prophet saw a date. Tamar, a date. It's Medina. There are dates everywhere. Some of the dates are scattered on the ground. The Prophet saw a date on the ground, and the Prophet said, I swear by God that if this man were to have given a date while he was alive, it is better than giving all of this money after his death. Meaning that when you give, you should feel it. It's easy to give when you're gone, but give while you're alive, when you feel it. وَتَصَدَّقُوا عَلَى فُقَرَائِكُمْ وَمَسَاكِينِكُمْ. And then the Prophet, what does he say? وَوَقِّرُوا كِبَارَكُمْ. This is advice for the community. Respect the elders. And this is important for us to learn. Especially in Western culture, this is not an ethical value that we're taught. What are we usually taught? It's your life. You do whatever you want to do. It's none of anyone's business. Sometimes sisters, they come to me and they say that, Shaykh, I've decided to wear the hijab, but my grandparents or my parents, they're giving me a hard time. So we're talking about fulfilling a wajib, wearing the hijab. So there are two things that you can do. You can put on the hijab and tell the elders in your family that they can all go to hell. It's none of your business. Is this what Islam teaches you? Even when you want to obey Allah and there are people who are creating problems for you, if they're elderly, they're older than you, go about your business in a way that is least offensive to them. Tell them that I've decided to wear the hijab. I'm firm in my decision, but I respect your right to differ. That we always have to maintain akhlaq. We have to respect the elders when we want to go about our business. There are many communities that I visit, and there's always a clash between the elders and the youth. The elders want to run the masjid a certain way, and the youth want to run it another way. I'm not saying that we should agree and follow the elders blindly, but even when you disagree, you shouldn't be disrespectful. That if you want to disagree with someone, you have to maintain akhlaq. And the Prophet says, in this month, make an extra effort to show respect towards the elders. If an elderly person enters the majlis, and you're young and you're sitting in a more comfortable place, give up your seat. If you're sitting on a chair and you're a young person, give up your chair to someone who's elder. If it's the time of iftar and you're a young person, don't rush to the front of the line. Allow those who are older than you to eat before you. وَوَقِّرُوا كِبَارَكُمْ. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ, what does he say? He says, إِنَّ مِنْ إِجْلَالِ تَوْقِيرَ الشَّيْخِ مِنْ أُمَّتِي. The Prophet, he says, part of respecting me is to respect an elderly person in the community. Is there anyone that would have the audacity to disrespect the Prophet? No one would have the audacity to disrespect the Prophet. When you disrespect an elderly person, an uncle in the community, someone who's older, senior to you, what you're doing is that you're indirectly disrespecting Rasulullah. You have to pay attention. وَوَقِّرُوا كِبَارَكُمْ. So you can disagree, but you have to be respectful. And then the Prophet says what? وَارْحَمُوا صِغَارَكُمْ. Be kind. Be merciful towards children. You know, in the month of Ramadan, we come to the masjid, and families, they bring their children with them. But what do we do to these poor kids? You know, some of them, they might run around, they might make a little bit of noise. We kick them out. We turn the masjid into a prison for them. Have mercy on them. I challenge anyone to bring me one narration where the Prophet became upset that there was noise and he was kicking children out of the masjid. Never. The Prophet never did that. The Prophet showed us how to treat children through his treatment of Hassan and Hussein. When the Prophet is on the mimbar giving a khutbah, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam enters, and he's only 2 or 3 years old, and he's walking and he's falling. He's walking and he's falling, and the Prophet sees him. He comes down from his mimbar. He couldn't handle to see a child fall. He would go and bring Hussein and put the young Hussein on his lap. We have to make the masajid environments that are friendly to children. We shouldn't make the masjid feel like a prison for them. I remember there was one alim, a great scholar, who was giving a sermon, giving a khutbah, and there were some children that were making a little bit of noise, and he saw that the organizers were dragging them out of the masjid. He stopped and he said, if you take them out, I am going to go with them. That if you kick the children out, I am also going to leave. Because a masjid that does not have children in it doesn't have barakah. That you should make them feel welcome. Make them feel comfortable. That even if they're not attentively listening, believe me, what's being recited from the mimbar is being downloaded into their subconscious. وَارْحَمُوا صِغَارَكُمْ. You know, the Prophet ﷺ, he used to literally get down on his knees, and he would allow the children to climb his back. The Prophet says, one of my sunnahs is that I always initiate salam to children. Do we do this? You know, sometimes when we enter the masjid, we're sitting, we wait for the children to come and say salam. The Prophet used to initiate the salam to the children. He used to make them feel like they are members of the community. وَارْحَمُوا صِغَارَهُمْ. Have mercy on them. And then the Prophet says, وَصِلُوا أَرْحَامَكُمْ. Maintain ties with your families, with your relatives. You know, in the month of Ramadan, we all have these plans. I'm going to recite 1 juz of the Quran. I'm going to recite this dua. We have a spiritual game plan. But have we included this, Silatul Arham, to reach out to relatives, to family members that we haven't talked to in a long time? You know, sometimes we get upset with each other. You know, you might have a relative or a friend, you know, they didn't invite you to an engagement. What a musibah, right? And then you don't talk to them for a year. The Prophet says maintain ties. Every day, at least once a week, Spend 5-10 minutes sending a message, sending an email, a text message, a phone call to a relative that you haven't spoken to in a long time. You know what Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam says? There's a beautiful hadith from Imam al-Hussein. Nabi sallu ala Muhammad wa alayhi. Where Imam al-Hussein, he says, من سره أن ينسأ في أجله ويزداد في رزقه فليصل رحمه. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. What does he say? He says, the one who wishes to increase their lifespan. Is there anyone who doesn't want to live a long life? Everyone. If there was a pill, if I gave you a pill and say this will add 10 years to your life, you'll probably sell your car just to buy this pill. You go to the gym, because you want to live a long life. You want to live a long, healthy life. Imam al-Hussein says, the one who wants to live a long life, don't think that it's only what you eat that has an effect on how long you live. There are some spiritual things that have a bearing on your longevity. Imam al-Hussein says, the one who wants to increase his lifespan and increase his rizq. These are two things that we're all chasing after in this dunya. We want to live a long life and we want rizq. We want Allah to increase our sustenance. The Imam says, do one thing. Maintain ties with your family, with your relatives. Don't say, oh, I'm not talking to this person anymore. This cutting off ties with relatives, it decreases your lifespan. It has negative consequences on your dunya and your akhirah. وَصِلُوا أَرْحَامَكُمْ. Maintain ties with your family. And then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what does he say? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. وَاحْفَظُوا أَلْسِنَتَكُمْ. Guard your tongues. Some of us brothers and sisters in the month of Ramadan, we've been fasting all day. We come to the masjid, and while we're having iftar, we're gossiping. Can you imagine? You fasted 15 hours. You prayed, you recited a juz of the Quran, and then while you're breaking your fast, did you hear what this person said? Did you see what she posted? You start backbiting. You know, the Prophet says on the Day of Judgment, there will be people who, when they are handed their book of deeds, some people will open it and they will say, Ilahi ma hadha kitabi. This is not my book of deeds. فَإِنِّي لَا أَرَى فِيهِ طَاعَتِي. You're going to say, oh Allah, I think a mistake has been made. I think I was given the wrong book. Why? Because I did so much worship. I offered so many prayers, and I don't see any of that in my book of deeds. فَيُقَالُ لَهُ. It will be said to him, إِنَّ رَبَّكَ لَا يَضِلُّ وَلَا يَنْسَى. Allah does not forget. Nor does Allah make mistakes. So what happened? ذهب عملك باغتياب الناس. Your good deeds were transferred to other people. Why? Because you backbited. Because you gossip too much. How unfortunate is it that you spend all this time praying and you read Dua Joshin al-Kabir and you sit and in 5 seconds you burn it all because you backbite. This is what should make you cry. That you squander all of these efforts. And there's another group of people on the Day of Judgment. You know, the victims of ghiba. They receive their book. And they say, Ilahi, this is not my book. I know myself. I didn't do Salatul Layl. I didn't go for ziyarah. I didn't do all of these deeds. فَيُقَالُ لَهُ إِنَّ فُلَانٍ اغْتَابَكَ فَدُفِعَ إِلَيْكَ حَسَنَاتُ. Such and such person backbited against you and you received their deeds. You received their deeds. So we have to pay attention to what we say. And then the Prophet says, وَغُضُّوا, that you have to lower your gaze. You have to pay attention to what you look at and what you listen to. You know, brothers and sisters, human beings are heavily influenced by visual images. When you look at something that you desire and that thing is haram, you create a knot in your heart. And that knot can only be undone either through tawbah or you fulfill that desire. When you look at non-mahram, when you look at the opposite gender lustfully, you're creating a knot in your heart. And either you do tawbah or you commit haram. There's no other way. So pay attention to what you look at. Everything that you look at has an effect on your spirituality. And don't listen to things that Allah has prohibited. And this obviously brings up the discussion of music, and we'll conclude shortly. I know it's difficult to stop listening to music. We're surrounded by it. You go to the mall, there's music. You go to the supermarket, there's music. We're surrounded by it. But you have to pay attention, brothers and sisters. At the very least, you might not be able to control the music that's playing in the mall, but you have control over what's playing in your car, what's being played in your house. You know, there's a reason why music is playing when you go to the mall. You think it's a mistake? You think it's a mistake? There's a reason why you're listening to, these musicians, and it's not Abdul Basit who's playing in the background. Why? Because that type of music is designed to make you impulsive and irrational. And that is the best ingredient for consumerism. Allah doesn't want us to be impulsive. He doesn't want us to be irrational. He wants you to listen to things that are going to enlighten your heart. And that's why Imam al-Sadiq, he says in a hadith, Baytul Ghina, he speaks about the consequences of listening to music, haram music. Baytul Ghina la tu'manu fihi al-faji'a. A house in which music is listened to is not protected from calamities. Number one. وَلَا تُسْتَجَابُ فِيهَا الدَّعْوَةِ. Du'as are not answered in a home in which music is listened to. You're listening to Cardi B and you're wondering why Allah is not answering your du'a kumayn. Is that a mystery? وَلَا تَدْخُلُهُ الْمَلَائِكَةِ. And malaika, they don't enter a house where music is blasted. So you have to ask yourself, if I'm going to listen to music, am I willing to sacrifice the security of my home, the answering of my dua, and the presence of malaika? And then the Prophet continues and he says, أيها الناس من فطر منكم صائما مؤمنا في هذا الشهر كان بذلك عتق رقبة ومغفرة لما مضى من ذنوبه. The Prophet says to the Muslims, if any of you, whoever breaks the fast of a fellow believer, you provide iftar in this month, you receive the reward of freeing a slave. Now, freeing a slave is a very unusual thing in our time. A slave was very valuable in 7th century Arabia. Giving away a slave is the equivalent of giving away your car in charity for the sake of Allah. It's a great amal. And all of your past sins are forgiven if you feed a believer in this month. And then when the Prophet said this, some of the Sahaba, they interrupted him. They said, قِيلَ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ وَلَيْسَ كُلُّنَا يَقْدِرُ عَلَى ذَلِكَ. Not all of us have the financial means of providing iftar for believers. So what does the Prophet say? اتَّقُوا النَّارِ وَلَوْ بِشَقِّ تَمْرَةٍ. اتَّقُوا النَّارِ وَلَوْ بِشَرْبَةٍ مِّن مَاءٍ. If you're not able to provide a meal, provide a date. Why dates? Because dates were the most common food at that time. They were literally all over the ground in Medina. Meaning, even if it's something as, get a bottle of water and pour cups of water and give it to those who are fasting when they want to break their iftar. You receive this thawab. And then, this is the final thing I'll mention. After the Prophet mentions all of these things, and you see that most of them are related to how you treat other people, Amirul Mu'mineen, he stands. Ali ibn Abi Talib says, after the Prophet finished his khutbah, I went to him. And I asked him, Ya Rasulullah, ma afdalul a'malu fi hadha ash-shahr. You mentioned all of the good things that we can do. But Ali ibn Abi Talib doesn't only want to do what is good. Ali wants to do what is best. And this is something that we have to learn. That we as the followers of Ali, we should not settle for only what is good. We have to settle for what is best. We have to aspire for what is best. And then the Prophet says, Ya Abul Hasan, أفضل الأعمال الورع عن محارم الله. The best thing to do in this month is to not sin. You know, some of us, we think that it's about what I should do. But the Prophet is saying, no, it's more about what you should refrain from doing. You need to develop taqwa. You know, during the time of Imam As-Sadiq and Imam Al-Baqir, Imam As-Sadiq was very young and he was doing tawaf around the Kaaba. He was doing a mustahab tawaf. His father, Imam Al-Baqir, saw him sweating and exerting himself. He went to his son and he put his hand on his shoulder. He says, my son, if you have taqwa, you don't need to put this much effort. Even the little that you do, Allah will be pleased with it. If you have taqwa, Allah will be very pleased with the little that you do. And an example is, imagine you have a boss, and your boss gives you a project and gives you a strict deadline. Let's say you don't deliver the project on time. You don't meet the deadline. And then the next day you throw a big party for your boss. You throw a lavish party. Is that party really going to mean anything after you miss that deadline? It's not. But if you meet the deadline and the next day you only get your boss a cup of coffee, that cup of coffee is going to be more valuable than the party that was thrown by the employee that didn't finish the job. So this is why the Prophet says that when you do things, make sure that you are doing it with taqwa. Because it is better to refrain from the muharramat and do the wajibat rather than commit all the haram and do all of the mustahabbat. Because Allah says in the Quran, إِنَّمَا يَتَقَبَّلُ اللَّهُ مِنَ الْمُتَّقِينَ. Allah accepts only from those who have taqwa. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to bless us and guide us and illuminate our hearts with the teachings of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين.